Okay, it's back to doing my favorite job, a job that I would do for free. Well, I am doing it for free. My name is Phil, and you're listening to The Lip. Here we are, back in the chair, doing another episode of The Lip, and not just any episode. I'm doing a story episode, and not just any story episode. This is episode number 40 as far as stories go. So, I've told a lot of these stories, and here comes three more at you. Let me tell you, the ones that I've had picked out for this episode are a little bit random because in the midst of me doing the 2002 2003 2 month story, I was doing a lot of work on other episodes, including this one. But during the time that I was simply writing my notes to get ready to do this episode, it occurred to me that I had enough material to do two episodes. And so, story 41 is already written, and it's just a matter of getting to, well, enough time to pass in order to produce story number 41. But I don't have to do any of the mind work because it's already done. The pen has already hit the paper and the notes have already been written. So it's going to be real easy. All I had to do is just flip through them, and here they are. You gotta love it when it works out like that. But that's why we take these notes. We remember these stories because it's all fun stuff, especially the ones when I start telling them. It just makes me sometimes laugh hysterically. Sometimes it makes me real mad. Other times I look like an idiot based on the thing that happened. But it is what it is. It's a true story. No fiction here as of the last episode. Fact or fiction. All of these are true. Now, for those of you who haven't listened to the show before, it's kind of crazy to think that I do those fact or fiction episodes and I do story episodes. Now, if I had taken all the true stories from my fact or fiction episodes, which I have done 17, no, 18, excuse me, fact or fiction episodes, I probably would have been up to, I don't know, three true stories per story episode, 18. Had one whole show where every single um, part of the fact or fiction was actually fact. So that could have easily been three story episodes right there. Let's just say I could have had a considerable amount more of story episodes already made up. But where's the fun in that? I like to try to play those little games with fact or fiction. Probably one of my favorite. In fact, I say it all the time. Every single time I do one, it's my favorite type of episode to do, with the exception of the story episodes, because these are always fact. And some of the stuff I can't believe I'm telling. But the good part is, I'm telling them. Now, granted, there are, like everybody else, stories that, well, they just never gonna get out. But the ones that do get out, I think are worth it. But now, it's time for me to fill in the blank. Here it comes. I know those of you who listened to last week's episode kind of thought that there was something maybe a little bit missing on that episode. And the answer is, well, yeah, there was something missing. And so the fill in the blank is what was missing and why. The answer is, well, I forgot to ask the question from the magic book. Why? That's the whole thing. I just was on a roll with the fact or fiction, and I did the spear of the week, and it just totally slipped my mind. Completely accidental. Totally forgot about it. 100% accident. Didn't expect it to happen, but it did. It's one of those things where they say, yeah, you're only human. And that's exactly what it was. I completely forgot about the book and the question. So the fill in the blank this week is, why was the episode short and why was there no question? Because, well, like I said, I completely forgot about it. Got me. Now it's time to ring the bell and start the main event. Story number 40. The bell has rung. Story number 40. Where are we going to go on this? Hmm. Looking. And like I said, my notes are pretty compiled for a couple of days, for a couple of stories. And I think that I'm going to start with this one. You ever get those phone calls? People trying to sell you stuff? I know you all have. I know you have because they just drive you nuts. Sometimes they say you're not supposed to even get them. And a lot of times when I look at my phone and I see scam likely, I'll answer it just to see what it's all about. And a lot of times you get either some sort of robocall, which is one of my least favorites. Just hang up on those, not a big deal. Then there's the ones that sometimes don't say anything at all, and then they just click and hang up. But every once in a while, you get a human being who is what I would imagine sitting behind a computer with a headset on, and my thoughts would be that the room that they're in is full of cubicles. There may or may not be air conditioning. I prefer the thought of there is no air conditioning and just a couple of ceiling fans spinning around the hot air that's in the room that these people and the computers are generating. That's what I like to envision. And they simply have a product that they're trying to sell. A lot of times it's a tangible physical object, something, I don't know, bigger than a bread box, and they want you to buy it. And they think it's the best thing for you. And a lot of times you just hear their stuff and it's just like, yeah, it's just stupid. Other times, those people just constantly call you and you hear about it and you're just like, I don't care. Hang up. Sometimes if you're looking at things and you see that, oh, maybe I'd be interested in trying that, and you go a little too far, and next thing you know, you get a million emails saying, hey, you need to try this. Just a bunch of junk. Then there's my favorite. The call that I got, it literally, in all honesty, it really had to make my day. It did. It really, really did. Because this phone call was one that I was going to receive because I actually half wanted it. What do you mean? Why would I want to talk to those people who are selling me something? Well, it's real simple. Real simple. I ended up getting a knock on the door two different times. You gotta follow the logic here. These two different times were from the same company. And they literally sent me a couple of automatons, for lack of a better term. They were absolutely robots, programmed in selling their specific product. Now, again, some part of me was somewhat interested for a bit because what they were selling is something that may not have been something I might not have really considered buying at one point. And still, in the back of my mind, maybe it's something that I want to look into, but not quite yet. What these two salesmen on two separate occasions, the first of these salesmen, or salespersons, I should say, was a very nice young lady who, for no fault of her own, had a very good product that I was interested in, which was Windows. Because I know that some of the windows on my house are relatively new, and I also know that some of the windows in my house need to be replaced. Now, when this lady came up to me and started talking to her for a little bit, initially I know that she's a salesperson. And because of my background as a shop manager, I can tell you that it's the same thing that they do, the same thing I do. The more that you like the customer, the more the customer likes you, the more you're going to try to rip them off. It's just what it is when it comes to these sort of salespeople. Don't get me wrong, real nice person. We had real good conversation, and you know how those people are that don't want to take no for an answer. But at the same time, I also know that they're going to get credit for getting what's the word for it? For getting an estimate. And so I thought the lady was nice, so I would do her a favor because she's got one of those crazy kind of jobs. Took all my information, set up the appointment. Now, dirty as it may have been, I had no intention on buying windows, nor did I have any intention on keeping the appointment. And so I didn't. They said that they were going to call right before they arrived, within a half an hour. And of course, when the phone rang and I answered it because I didn't want them to waste the trip completely, I told them, well, thought I was going to be available, but I'm not. And after discussing this information that they had given me, that really wasn't going to be able or interested in purchasing Windows at this time. And so that's how I left it. And so that's how that encounter was canceled. Now we're going to fast forward a relatively short period of time, maybe 2 months, three tops, and a gentleman shows up who is offering the same thing, Windows, from the same company. And again, I talked to this guy for an extended period of time as well. Must have been somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 minutes, maybe half hour. And we didn't talk about Windows. We talked about everything else. Everything else. We talked about, obviously, the small talk, the weather, talked a little bit of sports, talked about a little bit of politics. Yeah, it's crazy as that may sound. Yeah, a little bit of politics. And then he looked up my address and he discovered that his company actually did work on my house. They did the siding and they did some of the windows. So they knew that by virtue that some of the windows were already in great shape and they didn't have to mess with them. But they weren't sure about the other ones and they wanted to do an estimate and perhaps even do the work on replacing a few of the other windows. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself a little bit stronger because it's like, okay, so this company actually did the windows in my house. So maybe I do want to take them a little bit more seriously. But at the same time, I was thinking, it's still not quite the time. Really not prepared to do that now. And I'm not really having any issues yet. Of course, those are famous last words. Don't worry, nothing's happened. Everything is cool. But when we finally started getting into the nitty gritty, it was probably another 10 minutes. So the whole thing now is taking about 45 minutes. And he sets up the appointment. And just like the lady before him, we were in agreement about when we were going to sit down and talk about it and do the free estimate and get the work up and all that stuff. And the price gets locked in for a year and all that jazz. And then he asked me for my information. Wanted to make sure that I had the correct phone number, that they had the correct phone number on file. And so I go and I give my number. And then he has to, just like the other person did, which I didn't mention, he has to call back to the office and that person has to verify the information. I tell the person at the office my phone number again. Let me see. It was the sixth number of my phone number. When the office guy was repeating it, that was off by one number. Just an example. If my number ended in, if that number was a 4, he said 5. And hearing that immediately, I just instinctively, since I didn't want to actually do the free estimate, when he repeated it and said, "Is that correct?" I immediately said, "Yes, it was." No hesitation, didn't stop. If I was Pinocchio, my nose would have been 12 feet long. I went with it and said, "Good." They're going to call the wrong number, and I'm not going to have to do this. And on that note, I shook the man's hand. He walked away, and I shook the man's hand. He walked away, and then it happened. Strangest thing, but not strangest thing. As a result of the fact that I had given these people my number earlier with the lady that was at the place, like I said, about 3 months earlier, on the day of, which of course I wasn't really paying any attention, my phone rings, I answer it, and it's the window people. So in my mind, I'm like, why are these people calling me? I gave them the wrong number. And then it dawned on me, I gave the other lady the correct number. And what must have happened is the people at the main office probably tried to call the wrong number. It didn't work. And they recognized that there was another number that was one off. So they got my number. But this made it even more interesting because when they called me back, they actually said, hey, uh, I'm sorry to tell you this, but we actually overbooked and we're not going to be able to come out. And I was like, oh, you overbooked? Well, that's okay anyway because I wasn't really going to be able to be home and I'm not really interested in it. And I sort of did the small talk, but they're like, well, we'll just talk another time maybe. And that's how it ended. It's just crazy to think that I allowed them to think that they had the correct number, but they actually did have the correct number because of the previous encounter that I had. And then what made matters so much better was the fact that when they did call me on the correct number, they actually overbooked. So they weren't going to be able to come out and see me anyway. So that was a win win. Strange how these things happen, but for me, well, it was a win win. All right, let's see. Hmm, that one's too much fun. I'll do that one on 41. Um, I'll do that one on the same note. That makes sense because relatively the similar uh, episode. So I'll do these two because these two are frustrating to me. And the other one, this one is actually, both of these are actually very, very, what's the word for it? They're recent events. So we'll start with my bank parking lot. Most frustrating thing in the world. Now, I've been banking with this bank for 15 years now. And because of moving in different locations, I've had to use different locations which are closer to home. I've enjoyed my service with the bank, and I still do. There has just been one caveat, and that is with the bank that is closest to me now. All the other ones have had drive-throughs and fairly big parking lots. Even the one that I went to that didn't have a drive-through, that was close to a house that we lived in about 7 years ago. It had a huge parking lot because it was in a plaza, so there was plenty of room. This bank, which is very close to my house now, has an adequate amount of parking. It's really got a good amount of parking, and it has ATMs everywhere. It's cool. In fact, I may tell a story about something goofy that happened the other day regarding the ATMs, but that's not where I'm at. Even though it's the same day that that story happened, that's not the story I'm telling now. Because it turns out that one of my biggest problems that I have in life, it just irritates me to no end, is when you go to a place that has parking and they have signs, specific signs that say, hey, this parking lot is for customers only. Seems reasonable to me. The reason why people would be parking at this place is because they're going to this place. If you're not going to this place, we will appreciate it if you didn't park here. Now, for the last 5 years that I've been living at my house, this bank has had this parking lot, and a lot of times early on, I would use the drive through because I just like to do it that way. Then I noticed when I parked and went inside the bank, there was usually no more than two customers in front of me. Sometimes there was no customers in front of me. However, every single space was taken, and I have to drive around the bank 2 or 3 times until somebody finally moved. But there was only two people in front of me. How is this possible? Maybe it's because these people are all talking to bankers at the same time, and they have one, two, three, four, 5 desks, usually with bankers in them. Okay, so let's do the math here. If I got a parking space, the two people in front of me got parking spaces, let's say. All right. Then let's say each of the 5 people, each of the 5 bankers had a customer. That's 8 parking spaces. 8. Okay. Then we can go and add the 5 bankers, which makes 13 parking spaces. And then the 2 tellers, 15, plus 1 manager. So let's say there's 16 people who all drove and who are all parked in the parking lot. None of them handicapped. Why is it that when I go to the bank and I notice this situation, which of course happened the other day, and it happens very frequently, I counted 16, and that's the maximum. Now, the bankers that were back there were only 3 on this day, and only 2 of them had a customer. So we can take away 3 bankers. We can take away 2 bankers, so that makes it 14 possible parking spots. And we could take away 3 customers, which would make it 11 parking spots. 11. But we'll give you one more space for the security guard. So we'll call it 12. Now, my bank has 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 parking spaces in the front, if not counting the 2 handicap spaces that are in the front. So if everybody in there drove, including the security guard, we would all be able to fit in the front of the parking lot. And the entire back parking lot would be empty, which has an additional 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Let's get like an additional 13 parking spaces in the back. So let's say there's 25 total parking spaces without counting the 4 handicap. So it's like 30 parking spaces. So why is it that if there's 12 possible people who could have driven, and I'm not even saying that all the people who were in the bank drove, and I'm not even saying that all the employees drove. There's a bus that drops you off right in front. So not necessarily did all of these people drive. But let's say they did. That means that the 12 parking spaces would have been filled. What about the rest? I'll tell you where the rest came from. The rest were people who were at the restaurant and store directly next to the bank that has no parking spaces. It's just on a corner. Nowhere to park at all. And what happens is people want to go to that place and there's literally no place to park. So what do? They park at my bank, taking up my spaces. And I stress that because there's times when I just want to go to the ATM, pull up to the front, get out of the car, boom, take the cash, go. Deposit a check, go. Deposit cash, go. But I can't do that because every single parking space is full and there's 2 people in the line for the teller, nobody sitting with the bankers, and the security guard who's standing on the phone, usually just twiddling his thumbs, not doing anything. Now, I'm not overthinking this, I don't believe, but maybe if your job is to secure the bank, just a thought, part of the security of the bank is not just making sure nobody robs it, and even if they did, you wouldn't do anything because you're a security guard, it doesn't really matter. But maybe it would be to keep the parking lot for the customers. No, that just makes too much sense. Why would we do that? We don't want the customers, these pesky customers who actually have business at the bank, to go in and be able to, oh, I don't know, actually perform the business that they were there to do. I mean, there's plenty of people who go there to the business tellers who get change from their businesses and they deposit their money. There's people who want to move money around. There's people who just have questions, but they don't have anywhere to park. So they can either circle around several times and wait for somebody to leave, which they're not going to because they're eating at the restaurant or shopping at the store that's directly next door. Or they could do one of the other 2 options, and that is jump back in their car or stay in their car since they didn't get out because they couldn't. and go down the road, you know, 3 or 4 miles to the next location in the other direction. Or they can go about 3 or 4 miles in the other direction to another location where there's actually parking space and nobody is stealing all the spots. Ugh, it aggravates me to no end. It's like, why do you even bother with the signs? Why do you even bother with the security guard? None of that makes any sense to me. None of it. Why? Why is it? Realistically, I should probably have put this under the what are we doing? But the whole story is the fact that I drove around about 6 times, couldn't get through, and then I just left. And the whole time I see the security guard just sort of standing there when what he should have been doing is when the person pulled up that wasn't going to the bank, he should have said, hey, you can't park here. Would have been that simple. But no, he didn't. And that's why the parking lot is always full at my bank. And there is never a place to park because why would there be? These people are actually just trying to conduct business at the bank. It would make sense that they actually had a place to park. No, that's total nonsense. Why would we do that? Why would we do that at all? I mean, granted, I do have direct deposit and do a lot of online things with my banking, which is rare for me because I am so terrible with this stuff. But I check my account balance. The only thing I don't do is pay. Physically go to stores and pay with it. But it's the thought that you're supposed to be able to go in there and buy stuff, not buy stuff, get your money out, put your money in, and not have to worry about another business which is clearly cannibalizing the parking lot that doesn't belong to them. And that just drives me insane. It's just terrible. It really is. And now, from that to another story that is very aggravating and passionate to me. Are you ready for this? I don't know necessarily if you are, because this one is a lot of fun to me, because I've been tracking this for a while. We're going to start with, I don't know. I don't know where to begin with it. It would be a couple of years. Algorithms on Facebook and Instagram, when you look for things, when you shop for stuff, they know what you're doing, what you're shopping for, what you're interested in. And sure enough, they make sure to throw that stuff at you in their apps. So over several years, I have been starting a collection of WWE championship belts. Bought my first one not several years ago, probably like 4 years ago. A WWE championship. The one with the black strap and the W in the middle of the main plate. And I bought it for a fairly interesting amount of money. It was over the top. I got it on sale from the WWE shop. And for purposes of this story, I will say that I spent $300 for this belt. Now, a few years later, I was able to get tickets for WrestleMania 40. And I also purchased another belt, the second belt of my collection, which is a Intercontinental Championship. Not the active Intercontinental Championship belt, but the one that was a replica of one like the Ultimate Warrior, Stone Cold Steve Austin would have used. The black band, that style. And then at WrestleMania, I purchased the current version of the United States Championship. Altogether, these belts cost me about $1,200. So it's, I don't know about you, but for me, it was a fairly decent investment, pretty good size investment. And I was always on the look, and it took me some time in order to get those three. And I have, I guess you could say, some parts of me are delusional to want to consider getting other ones. And not to tell you just how these belts are sold. There are, I guess you could say, there are levels to this thing. I've always wanted to say that in context, and it really makes sense here. For these WWE belts, there are levels to this thing. What are the levels? Well, you can get the cheapy plastic kitty belts for anywhere between $15 and $20. Then there's the ones that they sell for kids that are better, and they'll cost maybe $40, $50. Then there's another level, which is now starting to get into the adult level. These are called commemorative championships. Now, these ones essentially are made out of roughly the same material that the kids' belts are. Consider that. But they're bigger. Those ones cost, at one time, somewhere in the neighborhood of $200. Then comes the level that I pretty much, and most people pretty much, sit at, which is replica. Now, in order to understand the difference between commemorative and replica, commemorative, think plastic, think fake leather material. That's commemorative, and that's a $200 belt ish, probably a little more. Replica. Now, those are actually zinc alloy, so they're metal. They've got some weight to them. The commemorative ones may weigh a pound and a half. These zinc replica metal belts, they weigh about 5 pounds. There's some weight to them. They have, like I said, zinc. The jewels, if there are any, depending on the belt you have, they're plastic. And those will run you, like I said, mine, the World Heavyweight Championship, was $400 on sale for $300. My Intercontinental was $400. My US was $450. But I bought the US on site at WrestleMania, which meant I didn't have the shipping and handling. And because of the time difference between when I bought the US and the Intercontinental, WWE increased the prices of these things. And even now, they've increased them more. So the replicas now instead of costing $450, they're about $600. So we can use that range, $400 to $600 for the replica. And that's if you go and get it in person, not shipping and handling, because like I said, they weigh about 5 pounds. It's probably about $30 for shipping and handling. So you could be paying almost oh, $650 if you had it ordered and delivered. Then there are two more types of belts that they have. Now, these two are more rare, and they only come in world championship belts. I haven't seen them in the um, the singles mid card titles like the Intercontinental in the U.S., and I haven't seen them in the women's titles either. And these two types are what they call deluxe, which when I was originally looking at them, the deluxe would be the World Heavyweight Championship, either one, the new current one or the one that I have. The Universal Championship, the red Universal Championship being specific, was in the deluxe. I never saw the blue one in deluxe, but that's high, neither here nor there. The deluxe has a little bit more. The jewels are now about the right. The plates are a little thicker, so instead of weighing 5 pounds, they weigh about 6. So it's a little heavier. So there's more metal to it. The plate's thicker, which is more accurate. And I believe those ones have the leather strap as well. When I was looking, those cost $750. I know I'm drawing this out, but you got to hear this transition in order to get to where I'm going. Now, the deluxe replicas, if you were to get your hands on one, probably closer to $800, but they don't really sell these as much because so many people already knew that that was a very high price to pay for those belts. And WWE is doing really, really good with just the replica, the lower version, the one that I have, which they've bumped up the price to a little less than the deluxe. So instead of paying $750 and then maybe $800 if you're getting it delivered, you just go and pay the $600 and you have a solid belt, not quite as good as that other. Then finally, there is the Elite Series. Now those came in the WWE Championship, like the one that I have, the black one with the W, and it came in with the red Universal Championship. And I saw it again, an Elite Series with the current WWE Championship, which is where this story comes from. Remember how I said the algorithms for Facebook and Instagram? For months, I would see these ridiculous things, which are usually the subject of my affection. They would show these belts and ooh, look at this. It's on super sale, really. Instead of having to pay, well, I didn't tell you about the Elite Series. The Elite Series belts originally would run $2,000 because instead of having plastic gems for the W's in the Universal and the World and in the other World title, they would use cubic zirconias. We're not talking about diamonds, but these are actual stones, actual cubic zirconias, whereas the lesser belt underneath the deluxe version would use rhinestones, which were a little better than the plastic ones that they got for the replica. So, plastic, rhinestones, a little better. And then cubic zirconia is at the top end for the elite. The elite belts also came with even more. The plate is pretty much exactly the thickness of the one that you would see on TV. And instead of being 5 pounds for the replica, 6 pounds for the deluxe version. The elite series weighs about 10 pounds because the plate is much thicker, it's much better metal, it's heavier, it's real leather strap, and it has a cubic zirconias, and that's why they charge that one for $2,000. Occasionally, you could see it on sale, and they would be about $1,700. And here we go. These super ultra deluxe sales that you'd see on Facebook or on Instagram would tell you that Fanatics had these extra belts and they were ready to move them. And it all made sense because, like I said, they were charging more for the replicas and they were phasing out the deluxe and the elite because the deluxe and the elite were kind of expensive. And they said, we're trying to move on from and focus on the other ones by increasing their price so that with the amount that they're buying, the people are buying of the replicas, it more than made up for the jaw dropping prices of the deluxe and the elite. So they just made the regular ones jaw dropping. I'm not going to get on my podium and talk about how I think that they may be pricing out the average person for getting one of these things. But the Instagram and Facebook both said, hey, check this out. You can get the championship belt that you want for 98% off. And so for months, I ignored it. And then I said to myself, self, have a look at this. Because there could be show content here. One way or another, this could be interesting. How so? Well, obviously, if I looked through the thing and I saw, hey, look at this. This is the current World Heavyweight Championship, the one that Gunther currently holds. And it's in the Elite Series with a thicker plate with a weight of 9 pounds, 10 pounds. And it's 98% off. And there's a chair from SummerSlam. Now, with SummerSlam or any of the pay per view chairs, you only get these chairs if you buy the front row tickets. And the front row tickets for some of these events, like WrestleMania, will cost you $10,000 to $30,000, but you get to keep the chair. If you were to try to buy the chair outright, it would be about $400, and they typically don't sell them until after the event's over. So you're talking a $400 chair and an Elite Series World Heavyweight Championship belt that would be anywhere between $17,000 and $2,000. And what they said for the price for the chair was $10 because of the discount. And for the belt, $1,700 belt, $10 as well. And I said, well, you know what? This smells like show content if I ever did see it. And so, what I decided was I'll invest a little bit in my show. And the worst thing that can happen is it's garbage and I lose the money. Now, after shipping and handling and taxes, the belt and the chair came to $31. Now, I paid 25 for the belt extender. So $31 after shipping and handling, everything all together for a SummerSlam 2024 chair and a Elite Series World Heavyweight Championship. I'm gonna sign up for that. And so I placed that order on April 29th of 2025 this year. I received an email April 30th saying, "Your thank you for placing your order. We will send you your merchandise within 2 to 5 business days." Now, in my mind, I'm getting really excited. 2 to 5 business days. Hmm. Because of the date that I ordered it and from the time that they received it on April 30th, and because of when the time of the week, my birthday is May 5th, I could very easily receive this belt and this chair no later than May 8th. So it come right around my birthday. I think this would be pretty cool. So I gave them my $31. And on April 30th, they took it. And I waited. And the weekend passed. And all of a sudden, now we're talking May 8th. They sent me the tracking information and said, "Oh, it's on its way." And I'm like, "Well, what's going on here?" You said 2 to 5 days. And then I started looking at the tracking and I looked and I sent them an email and I said, "Well, the tariffs that have been placed between the U.S. and China are making it more difficult for us to send your stuff." Meaning that the stuff that I was trying to buy, the belt and the chair, were coming from China. Okay, we know that. Coming from China. But it'll be on its way. And so I continued to track the package is 2 packages, day in, day out, for the rest of May after May 8th. Every week I would continue to look and see where the progress of my packages were. And it got to the point where it was like, hey, okay, we're getting kind of close. We're almost here. Now, because they sent it from China, they kept giving me Chinese time, which makes this so much funnier. Because on May 31st, I received an email from the tracking system that said, "Your package has arrived at 9:55 a.m. May 31st, 2025. They said that my package had arrived at 9:55 a.m. Sounds good. Only problem is when I received the email, it was 5:30 a.m. on that day. Meaning meaning that they sent me this email using the time stone and pushed it forward from the future to let me know that I already received my package 4 hours later. Of course, I didn't have it and started the email correspondence. That was a nightmare for the next couple of days until about June 2nd or 3rd. No, it wasn't even that long. It was that day. It was, and I just sent several nasty emails back and forth. And what they did at this point was they said, "Hey, we are sorry, but we delivered it to you. Our information says you received it." And I told them I did not. They said, "Well, we send it by a delivery service that takes our stuff and delivers it to you." And they said that they delivered it. And I told them they did not. I mentioned the Better Business Bureau, and all of a sudden they said, "Well, we can do a couple things for you. We can give you your money back, or we could resend your order. But if we resend your order, it's going to take 7 to 15 days to come." Now, this is May 31st, 2025. So, 7 to 15 days. The earliest it should show up would be June 7th, latest, sometime around June 16th, give or take. So I told them, "Okay, I'll be waiting." And I did. And I kept watching the tracker. And I kept sending them emails. And June 7th came up. And now it's like I told them, "Hey, the clock is ticking." You said 7 to 15 days. So this is where it begins. I didn't receive it on the 7th. And so I'm going to wait from this point forward. And we're going to now be in the the time where I should be getting this package. And they're like, "Oh, no worries, don't worry, it's coming." Sure enough, June 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, all the days go through June 16th. I get another tracking alert that says, "Your package has arrived." Again, my package arrived in the future. They said that my delivery was made at 9:48 a.m. Turns out I got this again around 5:20 in the morning. So again, 4 hours before, like 4 hours before they said that I got my package. And so I told them enough of this. And it's like, I expect my money back or I expect my package. Then they told me, "Well, the package that you wanted, the belt, the Elite Series Championship belt, and the SummerSlam 2024 chair, those things were discontinued items, and we only had two, and we sent them both to you, but you didn't receive them. So we're not going to be able to reship them to you." And I was like, "Really?" So give me my money back. And they said, "We will work on doing that." They then said, "Well, we're able to get you about 70% of your refund because we're losing money on the deal too. And I'm thinking to myself, as I'm texting them, because these people didn't give, not texting them, sending them emails because these people don't give you a number. I said to myself, and I wrote to them in the next email, well, you were selling a $2,000 belt for $10. How are you not losing money anyway? I want 100% of my money. 70 is not nearly good enough. And we're talking $31. So if you can't afford to send me my $31 back, there's an even bigger problem with your company. And with every single email, they made sure to say that we are a good, upstanding company that will do our best to answer any questions. And every single time they said that. And I told them, and they said, we will get you 100% of your money. You work on it. It's going to take us another month. And I was like, I stopped sending them emails at that point. It was just a fun adventure to see if maybe, just maybe, I could sneak out and get one of those belts for a good price. But of course, it's like they say, you get what you pay for. Unfortunately, in this case, I didn't even get what I paid for. Like, I would have been happy if they sent me some junky plastic belt, and I would have been like, well, there you go. I knew they weren't going to send me anything good. But instead, what they sent me was nothing, and what they took was everything. It was like they had Leonidas talking to the Spartans when they were getting ready to do their sales calls, I guess. They said their bosses literally said to them about their customers, take from them, to give them nothing, but take from them everything. That's what the boss literally said. Now, from somebody who was in sales, it's not the best way to go about doing things, but it's most effective, I guess, because you have merchandise that you can resell again, and you get the customer's money. Give them nothing, but take from them everything. That's what this company did to me. So I promptly and very much so enjoyed any time that I saw that on my algorithm where they were talking about those belts for free or anything that they sold from that particular company. I made sure to leave a message because it's Facebook, it's Instagram. You can leave comments on everything. And my goodness, I enjoy leaving the comments about how I got ripped off. And hopefully, somebody who really was hoping to get their hands on one of these belts because I'm not going to lie to you. If I didn't buy mine when I did, I wouldn't be able to afford to buy them now. They're ridiculous in price. They really have gotten insane. So it's one of those situations where they're almost out. They're literally a lot more expensive than they probably need to be. And people see an opportunity to get their hands on one of these things because they're pretty cool. I'm telling you, I love my belts. I do. And you get a chance to get one, and you're like, ooh, I'm going to jump on it. But when people are going to try to make light of your situation and just steal your money, it's really dirty. It really is. And as a direct result of that, I do whatever I can to sort of undermine that company whenever I get a chance. And on that note, I'm going to ring the bell and end the main event. Story number 40 is complete for now. So it's not going to take a big stretch of the imagination to see where I'm going for the spear of the week because I have a couple of options and I'm going to leave the other one for later. But for sure, the company that said, oh, yeah, we're going to sell you an Elite Series championship belt for $10 and we're going to sell you a front row SummerSlam 2024 chair for $10. I absolutely would like to find the person who was ripping people off and give him a little Roman Reigns treatment. He hasn't been around for a little while. Goldberg's coming back for Saturday night's main event on July 12th. I'll give you one of his spears. Pretty stiff. A Goldberg spear for the people who try to rip you off for these championship belts. They're the spear of the week. And now, so that I don't forget, we're going to go into the question from the Magic Book. This page will work. Let's see. Here's a good question. How do you handle betrayal? Well, I can honestly tell you, I handle betrayal in a very unhealthy way. I'm not gonna lie. Most of it is because it's just sort of in my nature to do. But then the rest of it is, after being a corrections officer, it's one of those things that you just kind of happen to pick up. And for me, I've never let it go. I handle betrayal in one very simple way. I expect it. I expect it. It's that simple. I simply expect to be betrayed at all times. It's so much simpler. Life moves for me so much easier if I expect that somebody's going to betray me, that somebody is going to lie, that somebody's going to cheat, that somebody's going to attack me from behind. It's so much easier to expect that and then be pleasantly surprised that they don't. That's just the Austin way to go with it. DTA. I think about it all the time. I've said for years I have never gotten a tattoo because I could never think about what I never could figure out what to get. But realistically, if there was something that I would tattoo, it would be DTA. It would absolutely be DTA with a smile, with a frown face. That would probably be what I would get. And for those of you who don't know what DTA stands for, it's the perfect example for why I would expect betrayal. Because DTA stands for don't trust anyone. If you trust someone enough, you will find that there is the possibility of betrayal because it requires a great deal of trust to expect somebody to be honest with you at all times. But like I said, for me personally, I'd rather not trust anyone and be pleasantly surprised when you find out that you can trust them. I love it because expecting that people, like I said, as a person who worked in a jail, you expect that that inmate's going to try to shank you. You expect that what that inmate is telling you is a lie. You expect that they're going to try to get you jammed up and fired. And I've taken it to heart and noticed that that's just what they do. That's because they're inmates. It's what they do. And as a direct result of that, you can't trust them. And then I've discovered that there are people in life that you understand that if you trust them, the likelihood that they will betray you is pretty good. I would honestly say that that's why I said it before. I'll say it again. I'd rather not trust you and then have you surprise me and be honest and be trustworthy rather than to trust you and be betrayed. It's so simple because if you do betray me and I don't trust you, I expected it. I'm ready for it. And that's typically where I go. So the question is, how do you handle betrayal again? It's simple. I don't trust anyone. That's an easy way to not be betrayed. Quick sip of water because what I'm about to do now is tell you about the painting that you're looking at in front of you now. It is another one of one. I call it River Shore. I think it's kind of an interesting little toothbrush painting. One of my favorite things to do is just take the toothbrush and see what it looks like. And to me, it looks like a riverbank, a little bit of trees on the side, grass. I like it. I don't know, in the words of the Joker, Jack Nicholson in the 1989, 1990 Batman movie. I don't know if it's art, but I like it. And I can certainly say that you can follow me on Instagram and join us on our Facebook group. Join us. There's always room for one more. The Lit Facebook group. Um, You can definitely like and subscribe to at Phil the Lip on YouTube, which is my YouTube channel, which is where this episode will air, and a great many of them have aired already. Check out the archives of Spotify. The Lip is on Spotify, and it's really just my archives now. I've put everything on YouTube at this point in time. Um, that's really where we're at. I can say this much though: if there is someone you can trust, you can definitely trust. Ta da da! Zenith Transportation to get you to where you need to go, or to get your stuff to where you need it to get to. Also, do yourself a favor and listen to Houston's Hustle Hobbies, because my goodness, even if you don't want to do every single thing that he wants to show you, probably not gonna kill you to actually listen, because there's always usually some nugget that you can pull out that's gonna be worth your time every time. That's my guy, Patrick Houston. You gotta listen to him. Absolutely gotta listen to him. And another thing you can trust is when you listen to haha, Inside the Homes, you will be entertained by Greg and Jessica Holmes. Great stuff. Can't wait for the next episode. And that's where I'm always standing. I just can't wait for the next episode. I love it. I really do. And I know that if you listen to their show, you will love it as well. But now, it is time for the words of wisdom. And we'll continue on with the trust aspect. Huh? Let's go with trust. I know I've probably used these words of wisdom before, but I can certainly tell you they're one of my favorite things to say. And I've actually gotten to say this to an inmate while I was in jail when I was working. And what I told this inmate was very simple. He was looking at me after he asked me a question, and he didn't believe what I had to say. So I simply told him the truth. I said, my man, I'm telling you the truth because I don't like you enough to lie to you. And he just looked at me and he was like confused. And then he really, you could see where the gears started grinding in his mind. He's like, you don't like me enough to lie to me. Wow, that's deep. And I think it is. Not to get into it too far, but once more, I'm telling you the truth because I don't like you enough to lie to you. Think about that. In order to lie to somebody, typically, depending on, there's an element where you're talking to somebody that you appreciate or trust or like, and you either don't want to hurt their feelings, you want to make them feel better about you or better about themselves. So it requires a level of, dare I say, trust or appreciation for that person or like or love to lie to them because you don't want to hurt their feelings. But if I don't like you that much or don't like you at all, I have no skin in the game, as they say. So it doesn't matter to me what you feel. I'm going to tell you the truth because I don't like you enough to lie to you. It's a very simple explanation for a very, very interesting thought process, right? But on that note, I will say that my name is Phil, and you have just listened to The Lip.